We've got the theme of sort of trying to find certainty in uncertain times. And Johnny's been out around asking questions, and it's been a mix. Some people, yes, but some people say, actually, we kind of know where things are. How do you see that whole message? Because of whatever you think about the Brexit thing, it is affecting energy.
Yep.
We've had some paralysis in sort of BES decision-making. We've got big ideas about what may happen post-Brexit in terms of fuel coming in and how things will work with the interconnectors. So are you finding that there is uncertainty for your customers?
I think part of what provides uncertainty to the customer is the rhetoric that goes round about it. And actually, whilst we're in a period of uncertainty across the entire industry and across the entire country right now, actually it's been the clearest strategic position that ScottishPower has ever been in. So for us, we have been very public recently with our first investment plans since we moved ourselves away from thermal generation. So we're 100% renewable now. And as part of that, we're investing £2 billion this year in the UK. That is massive as far as we're concerned. That's absolutely massive. And that investment is going across our entire energy chain within our company. So it's investing in renewables, it's investing in the networks, and it's investing in innovative products and services. So for us, whilst there's uncertainty, every political party right now is actually committed to the climate change principles that we have. And as long as that's sustainable and stable policies, then we can make our strategy work.
Your transition to renewable has been a bit painful. There have been, you've had to have closures, you've gone through that. Do you think those have been parts of the kind of challenge the whole industry is facing? Because not just you, all suppliers are trying to move away. The whole sector is trying to move towards decarbonising. And that comes with some sort of efforts and some pains as well.
Yeah. I think one's at a senior level, and I take this not just in the UK, so even last week I was over in Spain, I was at a chairman's meeting where there was about 300 senior managers from across Iberdrola Group across the world, and the decision and the strategy has been made at that level. So actually once you have that behind you, you can power through the difficulties of selling a major asset base. You can make sure that they've got the resources your team need to make sure that goes smoothly. And from a customer perspective, that shouldn't be seen as actually what is ScottishPower? Are ScottishPower pulling out of jobs? Are they pulling out of different things? Actually, for us, that 100% green message is investment. That's really what it is. It's investment. So there'll be 300 new jobs on the back of that. But it has to come from the top. You can't do it in segments of your company. It's got to be a strategic, global direction.
One of the biggest stories recently, unfortunately, has been the demise of Utility-Wise. Now, a massive company, and many suppliers had contracts with them. What was your reaction when you heard that news?
I think, first of all, it's actually just really sad. It's really sad for the industry, and it's painful and quite devastating for the people that work within that company. And I think anybody that owns an organisation has got responsibilities to the people that work for them. The actual circumstances of Utility-Wise, I can't comment on. But what I would say is it does question, in terms of what got them to the position. Was it poor management at their side, or was it because information wasn't flowing correctly back and forward? So we need to question ourselves at that point that, are we all working in a position that's got that customer experience and the viability of the organisations at heart?
In many industries, when a big name falls, there's a lot of sort of questioning, soul-searching, but there's also opportunity. So new people come along, there are, companies grow from other companies that once existed. It's been a gear shift because there's probably been the broker sector growing and growing and growing, and then this pop happened, a very large one.
Yeah.
Did it make you rethink how you're dealing with brokers as suppliers? Did you have a think about how your practices are and what you're doing on that? And what's your feeling of what it'll do in the short term for the broker market?
I think, to be honest, we didn't particularly question as a result of Utility-Wise.
Yeah, no.
If I go back 4 or 5 years, and you've interviewed me a few times, Sumit, in terms of some of the interactions we have within the industry and how we work with the TPI partners out there, and we sponsor the most trusted each year. And actually, what the most trusted means is, are we getting the best customer experience that jointly both of us can provide? I think there's probably three things for us that, not as a result of utility-wise, just in general, are we still looking at the right ways for us to be working together? I think the transparency question is still there. We know that there's a standard commission structure within this industry, and most of us agree that on the whole it's used appropriately, but in certain scenarios it's not, and therefore we need to make sure that jointly we don't allow that to happen, or we try and minimise situations, or the customer's very clear as to what they're paying. I think secondly, there's always been code of conduct, there's always been a code of practice. There's many conversations happening in the industry right now. The challenge that will always exist is, unless it's all in, then it's very difficult to make sure someone's not getting commercial advantage in that.
Of course, yeah.
And then I think the third thing is, we constantly look at ScottishPower to see how we can improve our data flow back to the TPIs. You know, we're not perfect either, but where is the risk areas that could cause financial burdens on a TPI if you come back in and you say we need to reconcile EACs, we need to look at change of tenancies, mid-losses partway through contracts, so that there's no big shocks and surprises when someone says something's not right in here and you've been monitoring it. And that's difficult to do sometimes, and we need to get the data better to do it.
One of the things that we've discussed today, I think a lot of people were watching one of the presentations on EVs and storage, and for the brokers who are here, many of them started off probably just doing procurement services. They procure energy for their customers. Now, I've spoken to loads who say, my customers want different things. They're thinking about EVs, they're thinking about storage, they're thinking about self-generation, thinking about that. So, are you expecting different questions and demands from the broker market coming to you as suppliers, and what solutions will you be able to offer them with this changing energy market?
We would love different questions, different demands. I'm sure people will dispute it out in the audience, but in terms of straightforward energy supply tenders, the money is so tight now that we need to be looking at the bigger picture that we can offer customers, to make this viable, not just for a TPI, but for the supplier, and that the customer's actually getting cost savings out of this. So if we can change how we structure tenders, and that becomes more difficult for apples, pears for pears, but we would absolutely welcome a different conversation. You know, there was different sessions today from ScottishPower on PPAs, which we've got massive global experience in this, but how do we get it in the UK? How do we get customers to speak to us in the UK? And bearing in mind, most customers want to facilitate their energy transactions through the TPI market. We need the TPI to help us get these solutions out there, so absolutely ready for those new types of questions.
What about the whole EV and storage picture? If a TPI comes to you and says, I need to have this solution for my customer, what can you do? What would your answer be?
We're absolutely ready. So in terms of EV, whilst we announced quite a bit around the domestic side at the end of last year, so we are the first company, we believe, to have an end-to-end domestic solution, from the charge point, small charge points, through to EV tariffs, through to managing it digitally on apps, through your ScottishPower account. So that's been going well, and the plans for 2019 that are part of that £2 billion investment is that we will be launching public, very branded ScottishPower charge points, and we will be launching business arrangements as well. How we encourage businesses to come forward and the routes and the channels to market, I think, is still to emerge. So if any of the TPIs have got ideas around how we can do that, then of course we're up for it, but the products will be there this year.
And my final question is, obviously, you've been here networking. It's always easy to answer easy questions from TPIs. You're happy to take the difficult ones as well and have that engagement?
I've had a few difficult conversations already today, which I get every year. So we do our best.
Yes.
We do try and keep innovating and try and meeting the standards that are expected of us. Sometimes it doesn't always go to plan, and most of the time it takes a conversation.
But you want to be
work
accountable
out.
and have the dialogue.
Absolutely.